Welcome back to the John List podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am your host. Now, just so you guys know, I'm not going to play, I'm not going to show anything in this episode because I'm going to play the audio of the letter that John List wrote to his pastor. So, instead of showing pictures and stuff, I just want you to listen to what's in this letter. All right, here we go.
Dear Pastor Raywinkle, I am sorry to add this additional burden to your work. I know that what has been done is wrong from all that I have been taught, and that any reasons that I might give will not make it right.
True.
But you are the one person that I know that, while not condoning this, will at least possibly understand why I felt that I had to do this. 1. I wasn't earning anywhere near enough to support us. Everything I tried seemed to fall to pieces.
Except he didn't seek help. So that was the problem. And also remember, he didn't tell his family that he lost his job at the bank.
True, we could have gone bankrupt and maybe gone on welfare. 2. But that brings me to my next point. Knowing the type of location that one would have to live in, plus the environment for the children, plus the effect on them knowing that they were on welfare, was just more than I thought they could and should endure.
You see, that's something that I don't understand, because you see, I am a religious person myself, and I've never heard of poverty as a sin, so if anyone has heard of such a thing, please let me know in the comments, because I have never heard of such a thing. And first of all, if someone is on welfare, or if you have to sell your house because things didn't work out, I mean, it just happens, you know? Like, the problem is John List had too much pride, but there really wasn't anything for him to have pride regarding himself. But, you know, it's just how he is.
I know they were willing to cut back, but this involved a lot more than that. 3.
Actually, it would have been easier for you to cut back if you told your family that you lost your job, or more importantly, you should have put your foot down when Helen tried to force you to buy a mansion when you couldn't hold down a job.
With Pat being so determined to get into acting, I was also fearful as to what that might do to her continuing to be Christian.
Now, I've heard some things like some people try to refer to acting as the devil's playground or whatever, but I mean, I just think that's ridiculous, to be honest with you. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, someone in my family who is extremely religious, I remember when I told them about the Harry Potter films, they didn't want to watch it because it was against our religion, I guess because of witchcraft, you know? And I said, well, you know, we know that the films aren't real, they're just entertainment, you know, and I didn't really consider it like a sinful series, to be honest. Like, I just don't look at that stuff that way, because here's the thing. If you only watch stuff that revolves, like, your, like, religious beliefs, like, if you are religious or not, you know, there's no judgment here, but it's like, I like the horror film Scream, and I watch the Scream movies. I mean, clearly those movies are against my religion, but, you know, that doesn't mean that you're going to end up like Ghostface, or you're not going to think that you're a witch or a wizard if you watch Harry Potter. I'm just saying.
I'm sure it wouldn't have helped. 4. Also, with Helen not going to church, I knew that this would harm the children eventually in their attendance.
I mean, I get it. You know, he wants his kids to go to church because that's the way that he was raised. But here's the thing, though. Just because let's see, how do I put this? I mean, if you are religious and you want to go to church every week, that's great. But you don't have to go to church in order to be considered a Christian, though. You know, and it's like, oh, and by the way, my relative did watch the Harry Potter films, and then they were okay with it afterward. So yeah, and like my sister, she's been trying to convince me to go back to church. I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously never going to leave the church. I still consider myself a Christian. I'm a very strong believer of God and Jesus and stuff like that, and angels. It's just like, the truth is, when I'm in church, like, I can focus very well during the first half of the session, or the service, sorry, and from, like, the middle of the service to close to the end, like, it's like my mind kind of goes into a different place. Like, I don't understand, but, sometimes that's part of the reason why I feel bad. Like, it's like, until I can figure out what's causing that, and if there's something I can do to focus better, like, I would just feel bad,
I had continued to hope that she would begin to come to church soon, but when I mentioned to her that Mr. Yutse wanted to pay her an elder's call, she just blew up and said she wanted her name taken off the church rolls.
I mean, I can understand how that could upset a parent, but I don't think that necessarily means that they are not going to be Christians anymore.
Again, this could only have an adverse result for the children's continued attendance. So, that is the sum of it. If any one of these had been the condition, we might have pulled through, but this was just too much. At least I'm certain that all have gone to heaven now.
Here's the thing, John. It's not up to you if your family went to heaven. And the truth is, some people believe that the murders would have happened whether if they had financial problems or not. So, I kind of think that now. I didn't think that at first, when I first studied this case. But that is something good to think about.
If things had gone on, who knows if this would be the case? Of course, Mother got involved because doing what I did to my family would have been a tremendous shock to her at this age. Therefore, knowing that she is also a Christian, I felt it best that she be relieved of the troubles of this world that would have hit her. After it was all over, I said some prayers for them all, from the hymn book. That was the least that I could do.
Or you could have swallowed your pride and told your family the truth. You would have to sell that big mansion. Well, the truth is, I really think that you should have stood up to Helen and say, look, I'm having trouble holding down a job, and even though I have this big job at the bank, we shouldn't get greedy and buy a mansion.
Now for the final arrangements. Helen and the children have all agreed that they would prefer to be cremated. Please see to it that the costs are kept low.
Wow, talk about cheap.
For Mother, she has a plot at the Frankenmuth Church Cemetery. Please contact Mr. Herman Shelkus, Route 4, Vassar, Michigan, 41768. He's married to a niece of Mother's and knows what arrangements are to be made. She always wanted Reverend Herman Zender of Bay City to preach the sermon, but he's not well. Also, I'm leaving some letters in your care. Please send them on and add whatever comments you think appropriate. The relationships are as follows: Mrs. Lydia Meyer, Mother's sister; Mrs. Eva Meyer, Helen's mother; Jean Seifert, Helen's sister. Also, I don't know what will happen to the books and personal things, but to the extent possible, I'd like for them to be distributed as you see fit. Some books might go to the school or church library.
Isn't that sad how he's more concerned about the things in the house compared to his family? I mean, it's the same thing in the previous episode when I was talking about how John mailed the key to his desk drawer to the post office, and he actually told the police in a note that they had to go get the key at the post office instead of breaking the desk drawer open. Wow.
Originally, I had planned this for November 1st, All Saints' Day, but travel arrangements were delayed. I thought it would be an appropriate day for them to get to heaven.
I'm not quite sure what he meant by that, but that's just creepy.
As for me, please let me be dropped from the congregation rolls.
Oh, okay. So you're throwing this huge fit about how your kids and your wife want to have their names taken off the rolls, but no. Once you take them out and you want to flee, then you want your name taken off the rolls. Hypocrite!
I leave myself in the hand of God's justice and mercy. I don't doubt that he is able to help us, but apparently he saw fit not to answer my prayers the way that I hoped they would be answered.
So, let me get this straight, John. So, you're basically blaming God that you couldn't hold down a job? You're blaming God because you didn't do the opposite of how your mom raised you? Now, here's the thing. I understand that when you're raised a certain way, it can be difficult for you to do things differently. But when you keep failing, you have to do things differently. Otherwise, nothing's going to change. But the thing is, yes, praying to God when you need either strength or comfort or like anything to get yourself going again, obviously praying is important, but you can't just pray and just expect like things to just pop out of the sky.
This made me think that perhaps it was for the best as far as the children's souls are concerned.
I disagree. I feel like you were being way too judgmental, and just because the kids were not the way you were as a child does not mean that they were going to grow up to be devils or something. It's like, but at the same time, when John was a kid, based on what I've heard about how he was raised, he was basically kind of like a zombie, and his kids were obviously not like that. Patricia wanted to be an actress, and John's sons were athletes. So, yeah, very different.
I know that many will only look at the additional years they could have lived, but...
Exactly.
If finally they were no longer Christians, what would be gained?
John, there are people who are not Christians that are good people, and there are Christians that are bad people, like you.
Also, I'm sure many will say, how could anyone do such a horrible thing?
Exactly.
My only answer is it isn't easy, and was only done after much thought.
After much thought, huh? Should I sell the mansion or kill my wife and kids? Should I try finding another place to work, maybe in a different state? Or maybe I should seek a job. I'm assuming they probably had job counselors back in the 70s. I don't know. I didn't exist then. But I don't believe that, John. I think you kept doing the same things that you were doing the entire time, and you were expecting a different outcome, and that wasn't going to happen.
Pastor, Mrs. Norris may possibly be reached at 802 Pleasant Hill Drive, Elkin, home of her sister. One other thing, it may seem cowardly to have always shot from behind, but I didn't want any of them to know, even at the last.
Now you see right there, John even lied to his pastor, because it actually has been confirmed that John Jr. was trying to defend himself against his father, so he knew about the gunshots. And like I said, John was shot 10 times. So when he was shot the first time, he was still alive. And when Patricia was shot, she actually turned her head slightly and the bullet went through her cheek. So obviously she knew. And there was even a statement saying that when John shot his mom, it was right above her eye. So obviously she saw it. Sheesh.
Second that I had to do this to them. John got hurt more because he seemed to struggle longer. The rest were immediately out of pain. John didn't
They were immediately out of pain, huh? How do you know that, John? How do you know that?
feel anything either. Please remember me in your prayers. I will need them whether or not the government does its duty as it sees it. I'm only concerned with making my peace with God, and of this I am assured because of Christ dying even for me.
Wow.
P.S. Mother is in the hallway in the attic, 3rd floor. She was too heavy to move. John.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. A very disturbed individual. Okay, so let me know what you guys think about this in the comments, and I will see you in the next episode.